Oh, Father, tell me, do we get what we deserve?
It's 1954, and up-and-coming U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels is assigned to investigate the disappearance of a patient from Boston's Shutter Island Hospital. Once Teddy and his partner, Chuck, enter the gates of the hospital on the island, they immediately begin their investigation by questioning staff and patients present at the time of the disappearance. Throughout the film, you see several flashbacks that allow you to learn more and more about the main character, Teddy Daniels. We learn that he fought in World War II and was one of the soldiers to free POWs of German concentration camps. We learn that he has killed many German Nazis in this war as well. While Teddy speaks to his partner, we learn that his wife and children have died as a result of a fire ignited by a man named Andrew Laeddis, who is currently at Shutter Island. Although Teddy came to the island to search for a missing woman, he uses it as an excuse to investigate what he thinks to be unethical human experience taking place on the patients on the island. During his search, he catches Dr. Cawley in a few lies and becomes more and more convinced of the human experiments that are taking place. Teddy searches through each building, including the C block, which was the highest security housing for the most dangerous of the patients. After finding nothing, he concludes that the lighthouse on the island was the only other place that these experiments could be taking place. Teddy makes his way to the lighthouse and insists his partner Chuck let him go alone. Right before coming to the lighthouse, Teddy is picked up by the island security and brought back to Dr. Cawley. At this point, the missing woman had been located, so Teddy informs the doctor that he and Chuck will be on their way. Teddy then asks Dr. Cawley if he has seen his partner lately, since Teddy had not seen him since they parted before the lighthouse. Dr. Cawley responds, "You came alone, Teddy. You have no partner." Teddy believes the doctor is lying to him and sneaks off again to the lighthouse, where he believes his partner is being held. Once at the top of the lighthouse, Teddy finds the doctor sitting at the desk. The doctor confronts Teddy and tells him that he has been a patient at Shutter Island for the past 2 years. Teddy refuses to believe him. Dr. Cawley brings in Chuck, who now claims to be Teddy's therapist for the past 2 years. Teddy becomes flustered, thinking everyone has conspired against him to make him think he is going crazy. Only after the doctor displays Teddy with picture evidence does Teddy begin to realize the true reality. In fact, Teddy wasn't even his real name. His real name was Andrew Laeddis. Teddy then has a flashback again, and it shows him coming home from work as a detective, finding that his wife has murdered his 3 children. She doesn't act as if she had done anything wrong, but as Andrew weeps on the ground, he murders his wife. Andrew couldn't live with knowing he allowed his bipolar wife to murder his children on top of actually killing his wife, so he creates a man to blame for these actions as a defense mechanism. He finally becomes aware of reality at this point, and the doctor believes he has healed him. The next morning, right before they were about to release Andrew, Andrew speaks to Chuck as if he was his partner again, making Chuck believe he is being delusional once again. Instead of being allowed to leave, he is escorted to be lobotomized. The main character, Teddy, or also known as Andrew Laeddis, has quite the history. He starts off as a World War II veteran. He witnesses and participates in many gruesome actions. In addition, he witnesses the death of his children. Also, he feels responsible for the death of his children for not getting his wife help sooner for her mental illness. Lastly, he killed his wife. Several behaviors and symptoms arise in Teddy due to this traumatic history. One being, he is highly delusional, but he's also highly functional, although he does not have any hallucinations. He displays remarkable defense mechanisms. He has short, seldom outbursts of anger, and also paranoia. Based on the behaviors and symptoms that Teddy exhibits, my initial diagnosis is that Teddy is a schizophrenic. Although, since Teddy does not display any hallucinations, schizophrenia is automatically debunked. Though I do believe Teddy suffers from PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, from fighting in the war, witnessing his children dying, in addition to killing his wife. Due to this PTSD he exhibits, symptoms of paranoia and delusions occur. According to the DSM, if a person experiences one or more of the following, he or she could suffer from PTSD. Teddy relates to 3. The first being directly experiencing the traumatic events. Teddy directly experiences war, the death of his children, and the death of his wife. The second being learning that the traumatic events occur to a close family member or a close friend. In cases of actual or threatened death of a family member or friend, the events must have been violent or accidental. This is seen when he finds his children dead in the lawn, and also his wife was killed by his hand. Third, experiencing repeated or extreme exposure to adversive details of the traumatic event. This is seen in many of his flashbacks of both the war and the death of his wife and children. Second, presence of one or more of the following intrusion symptoms associated with the traumatic events beginning after the traumatic event occurred are symptoms of PTSD. Teddy displays 2. The first being recurrent, involuntary, and intrusive distressing memories of the traumatic events, which is seen in his flashbacks. The second being recurrent distressing dreams in which the content and or effect of the dream are related to the traumatic events. This is seen in his repeating dreams. In addition to PTSD, the DSM would also classify Teddy as having a delusional disorder. To classify someone as having a delusional disorder, one must display the following: the presence of one or more delusions within a duration of 1 month or longer. Teddy has had an ongoing delusion for the past 2 years, living at Shutter Island. Second, apart from the impact of the delusion or its ramifications, functioning is not markedly impaired, and behavior is not obviously bizarre or odd. Teddy fits this profile perfectly by having his delusions, but is very highly functioning. Lastly, if manic or major depressive episodes have occurred, these have been brief relative to the duration of the delusion periods. These outbursts can be seen when Teddy gets enraged with Dr. Cawley several times throughout the movie. Teddy most accurately falls in the persecutory type. This subtype applies when the central theme of the delusion involves the individual's belief that he or she is being conspired against, cheated, spied on, followed, poisoned, or drugged, maliciously maligned, harassed, or obstructed in the pursuit of a long-term goal. I believe Teddy scores a 60% on his ability to function in society. Though Teddy lives in a fantasy or delusion where he didn't kill his wife, he is still highly functioning and believes his purpose to uphold the law. Teddy, even after the killing of his wife, doesn't fit the mold of a psychotic killer. Though his actions were wrong, he felt as if she wanted him to take her out of her misery, for she was suffering from her mental illness and could not control herself. But at the end of the movie, when I believe Teddy has been cured of his disorder, he scores a 90% because he no longer is limited to his fantasies and he is remorseful. But he doesn't score a complete 100% because his intense remorse could lead to him injuring himself. The modern-day treatment for Teddy's delusional disorder remains a difficult disorder to treat, although he would most likely receive either antidepressants, mood-stabilizing drugs, or antipsychotic drugs to combat these symptoms. For Teddy's PTSD, cognitive behavioral therapy is a type of counseling that has proven to significantly help victims of PTSD. Using this data, the prognosis for Teddy is that he initially suffered from PTSD from both the death of his family and the war. This later sparks him having a delusional disorder as a means of a defense mechanism to cope with these traumatic events. There are many who have suffered from similar events as Teddy. Therefore, the disorders that Teddy develops aren't too far-fetched and are indeed possible. Though this movie is not based off an actual story, mental asylums such as Shutter Island do take place in America's past and mark an age when we knew very little about and how to treat these mental illnesses. The viewing of this movie arises several implications. The implication that these people are best off isolated from society as drastically as being on a separate island from the mainland could be a harmful thought for viewers of this movie. Though these people do suffer from illnesses which have caused them to act out and commit crimes, these are still members of society and should not be pushed under the rug of our nation.